Hello there, Keith King here from AncientSymbolist.com. Today I would like to talk about the Holy Grail or chalice, specifically what it is and where it originated from. It is one of the most powerful symbols that was ever created. Here the angel is offering it to Jesus, who is eager to possess it. For the royal households of Europe, it is the basis of their seat of power. Imagine one particular ruler. Let's take Queen Victoria of England. At the height of her power, she ruled over 400 million subjects and over 1/4 of the world's landmass. How was she able to do this? Well, she could trace her family line back to King David of Jerusalem. Why is this so special? Well, it seems that King David found special favour with the God of the Israelites. This was because David built a house to place the Ark of the Covenant in. His God told him his seed will rule over God's people wherever they live in the world. To make sure this statement was never to be forgotten, it is placed upon the ceiling of the Grand Lodge of England. David then instructed his son Solomon to complete the temple that would house the ark. From then on, whoever could trace their family line back to King David could lay claim to the throne of that land. This is where the symbol, the Holy Grail, was reintroduced. The first verse in the New Testament states these words: "The book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham." Now, the whole Christian faith can be aligned back through the genealogy of all of the patriarchs of the Old Testament and its connection with royal blood. Here is a chart from Adam to the last Queen of England. You might want to freeze this chart and zoom in to where a princess by the name of Ruth comes in. This family line of Victoria would go on to create the First World War, where millions of people from Russia, Germany, England and Romania would fight for their respective kings, who were all cousins, namely the Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, King George V of England and Ferdinand of Romania. The war was started by an organisation not liking the choice the Archduke of Austria, Franz Ferdinand, made in choosing Sophie, the Duchess of Hothenburg, as his wife. They deemed her bloodline to be not honourable enough. They then assassinated the pair on the 28th of June 1914. This sparked the war that would see upwards of 14 million civilians and soldiers die. After the war, the Russian people drove Tsar Nicholas II out of power and murdered his entire family, ending this part of the royal bloodline. The German people then made King Wilhelm II abdicate, where he fled to the Netherlands and died during the Nazi occupation in 1941. His family line still lives on, but enjoys no legal privileges in Germany. King George V of England, his family line continues on until this day, with King Charles III now ruling over the country.
I did not make myself king. God did. King by divine right.
This knowledge of the divine right to rule over God's people was taught as history to the nations of Europe. It can be seen in Cologne Cathedral. St. Peter brings the key to this royal bloodline that goes back to the Jewish King David. But things could have gone very differently. If this German, Adolf Hitler, who served in the trenches in World War I under King Wilhelm and seen millions of his fellow countrymen lose their lives because of this hereditary bloodline that dated back to this Jewish King David, his quest to eradicate anyone who could lay claim to this bloodline would see millions more lose their lives, and this bloodshed would have continued on if not for the assistance the Commonwealth and their citizens sent to Great Britain, along with America, Britain's ally, and their extra forces. Did America join the war because nearly all of her presidents also have some of this royal bloodline? These history lessons beg the question, where did this bloodline originate from? And why was Jesus and his bloodline highlighted at every opportunity? There are only two lines that can fulfill this claim. The first is the original first king and high priest of Jerusalem, whose name was Melchizedek. He was the first to hold the Holy Grail, along with the loaf of bread and the veil to hide the priesthood's secrets. As Melchizedek was the high priest of Jerusalem, he would have been in charge of the original temple within Jerusalem. Melchizedek met with Abraham and explained the knowledge associated with the temple at Jerusalem and the special esoteric meaning of the golden ratio or spiral and its relationship to the position of the temple on the earth's grid. After Abraham met Melchizedek, he instructed his children to one day possess Jerusalem, which they did. Here is Melchizedek with Abraham and Isaac, Abraham's son. Melchizedek holds the grail, and Abraham holds the knife which he will use to sacrifice his son Isaac, who carries the timber and fire for his father's offering. Fortunately for Isaac, a ram gets caught in a bush by its horns, which are shaped like the spiral or golden ratio, and Abraham then sacrifices the ram instead. The Holy Grail does not surface again until Mary presents the infant Jesus to the high priest of the temple. This mosaic window shows the Holy Grail placed in front of Mary, whose father just happens to be Joachim or Jarkin, his real name. He was the assistant high priest of the temple at Jerusalem. He was known as the priest in charge of the Sanhedrin, who taught Sanskrit from the ancient Indian language known to the Brahmins. This is where a Brahmin came from. When Jesus was ready to take up his position as an apprentice priest, he was presented to Joachim and the other priests of the temple by Mary and Joseph. During his time in the temple, he learnt about what was his grandfather's business. This was the study of the cosmos in the form of the sun, the moon, and the stars. The sun and the moon and the stars are usually shown behind Jesus whenever he is placed upon the cross. Whoever was associated with the bloodline of the Holy Grail was in possession of secret knowledge of how the universe worked, especially the sun. It was passed down from the pharaohs of Egypt and then on to Jesus, and Jesus would teach that the cosmos produced various signs or symbols, and he would explain their relevance to his disciples through a third ear attached to their heads. This is recorded in the book of Luke. He was also taught about the symbols associated with Venus, mainly the orb or ankh. During Jesus' time as an apprentice priest, he was also given the reason behind these special hand gestures, and he would give these special hand gestures whenever he was around Mary Magdalene. This whilst holding the loaf of bread in his hand. The Holy Grail is always placed in front of both Jesus and Mary Magdalene. This scene is especially played out whenever the Last Supper is displayed. Where is the Holy Grail now? Many places claim to hold the Holy Grail. It is said to reside in various places around Europe. One of these is the cathedral in Valencia, Spain. When I visited this cathedral, the Grail was portrayed in this large window, and the original Holy Grail was said to be housed in this glass cabinet. If Melchizedek is one of the royal bloodlines, where does the other bloodline originate from? The other royal line comes down from a Moabite princess whose name was Ruth. Ruth has her own book in the Bible. She married a wealthy landowner whose name was Boaz. Their grandson was Jesse, who was the father of King David. Every large church in England and most of Europe has a mosaic window called the Jesse tree. It shows the family line from Jesse, David's father, right down to Jesus. The royal houses were telling their subjects through these church windows why they were God's chosen representatives here on earth. The blood that came out of Jesus' body was related to their blood. For bringing the royal blood into the Israelite nation through Boaz's tribe of Judah the Lion, Ruth would find herself placed outside Buckingham Palace, along with her symbol, the ear of wheat, and the Lion of Judah. Ruth would then be placed in most churches holding the ear of wheat. She would stand above the caption, "Thy God will be my God." But there's more to the story of the Holy Grail, a story that tells of the continuing bloodline of Jesus, one that contains Mary Magdalene and Joseph of Arimathea. In this church in England, Joseph of Arimathea stands alongside King Arthur. Above their heads is the Holy Grail, filled with Jesus' blood. King Arthur was called Pendragon, which literally means the chief of the dragons. And from now on, the Holy Grail would be shown in the hands of St. John the Evangelist, and inside his grail would be the dragon, with its tail and wings in the shape of the spiral or golden ratio. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and then watch the next part of this particular subject, one which shows Jesus breaking bread with his 2 disciples and sharing with them the secrets of the universe.